going to make some caramels here today, and I'll show you kind of what I've been doing. I don't even eat these because, you know, I'm diabetic, and I'll maybe try one or two because I can't help it, but I make them, I give them away to my friends just because I love making them, and it's something I can make with my honey. Yeah, it's just something to do over the holidays. So here are my main ingredients. I have a kilogram of Manitoba's most delicious honey, clover and wildflower honey from my backyard. And for the metrically challenged, that's 2.2 pounds. I have heavy cream, 18% heavy cream. I'll use about half of this. This is a liter, so I'll use 500 milliliters from this. And I have vanilla extract. This is artificial vanilla extract. That works fine. And I have butter. Here's for my American viewers. This is how butter comes in Canada. I think your butter generally comes a little differently. You have these sticks, I think, for butter. And that, you know, not only is different, if we try to buy one of those butter trays with the lid here in Canada, they don't work because they're made for butter sticks in the US, and they're not tall enough for the pound of butter that we find in the store. So anyway, so this is one of those things. This is we call this a pound of butter, but you know, things are supposed to be sold in metric here, and it is kind of a pound of butter because it's 454 grams. Now, the nice thing about these butter wrappers is that when you're baking, you can just unwrap these, and there's a little measure here. See, I need a half pound of butter for my recipe. So this says that this is 1 cup, which is a half a pound. So a pound is 2 cups. Then it'll give you quarter pound, 8 pound measures. Here, you know, quarter cup, 8 cup. So that's nice. You can just take your knife and you can cut right through the wrapper and all, right on that line. The first thing I need to do is to butter my pans that I'm going to put this in. So let's cut this butter right down the middle. That butter is for the recipe, and that butter is for preparing the pans. I have, the recipe calls for 3 9x9 Pyrex pans. And this is kind of a double-sized pan, so I've got one more that makes up 3. And I can just butter this around on here like this. And this is important because the stuff will really stick. It is difficult to get out. It's difficult to get started. Once you get it started, it comes out. I just washed it. There was a little bit of water, I think, so the butter doesn't stick if it's wet. I want to roll the butter up the side a little. These are genuine Pyrex pans. I have another pan. I think it's a Chinese made pan, and I don't like it as much at all, specifically for this. These pans, the sides are straighter, and before they curve down, the other one, I call it a knockoff pan. It's more sloped, and so the bottom area is smaller. I don't like that as much for this. It might be better for some recipes, but certainly not this one. So I like to get this prepped because when you're making the candy, you're rather busy. You make the candy and then you have to pour it in here. Okay, so that's all prepped up nice. So I'll set this one aside. Now these are the ingredients for the caramel. I have two optional ingredients that I use, and one of those ingredients is pecans. Pecan halves, to be specific, and I just line the pan with those. I don't get too much of the dust. I never remember how much ingredients to buy. I make these once a year and then I forget what I'm doing. So that's pretty good. And yet this is your candy too. You can put as much or whatever. Walnuts works good in here too. Pecans are a little expensive, maybe harder to find. Walnut chunks really make it nice too. I think pecans are just that notch up. Okay. I'll set this bag of pecans aside. Now when I'm done with the candy, it'll go straight in here, and then I prepare chocolate. I like dark chocolate, so I buy dark chocolate chippets for that, and I'll just melt them in a pot and melt them, and then I just pour that right over there. It cools in the fridge, and if I did things right, it'll harden up just right for a nice firm, chewy caramel. Okay, I'm going to set these aside. So I've got my recipe here in my old man glasses. Now you cannot do this if you don't have a candy thermometer. Okay, my recipe is listed in Fahrenheit. This is the thing about Canada. We measure temperature outdoors in Celsius, and temperature when we're cooking we measure in Fahrenheit. It's kind of crazy. However, I need to heat this to 275 Fahrenheit, maybe a little more. So what that says, it has different words on here, and what that says at 275 is it says hard ball. So that's what will happen to the sugar or the honey. A little hotter, it says soft crack. Here, hard crack. So it just gets a harder candy as you get it hotter. Now I think the chemistry behind this is that the hotter you get it, the more of the moisture you're going to cook out of the honey, and the cream, because you're adding the honey and the cream at the beginning. All right, let's put Manitoba's most delicious honey in here first. And it goes. That beautiful golden nectar. Don't get it on the outside of that pot. It'll run down onto the burner and it'll smell really bad. Okay, I think I have that pretty well cleaned out. Okay, I've turned the burner on about halfway just to start it warming. My thermometer, I want that to be out of the way, but most of the way to the bottom. And I'm only going to have about an inch or a little more of liquid in here when I start. However, you need to have a way bigger pot, because this is going to foam up and fill this pot. If I remember correctly, this is the pot I was using. Now I'm going to put the cream in. I'm going to eyeball half of this. since I have brand new eyeballs. Yeah, that's about half of that. And again, I believe the determining factor with how it sets up is the heat. How hot do you get it? Because that'll determine how much water you boil out of the mixture. And it gets to be a sticky situation. I did get honey on that. All right. Now this is the part a heavy bottomed pan, it says, and medium heat. I've maybe got it a little warmer than I should, but my recipe says make sure to get it 275 or hotter. If you don't get to that point, then it won't set up. So it's not really mixing all that well with the cream, but when it gets warmer, then of course we all know that honey will lose its viscosity, and then it'll start to mix better with the cream. So that's starting to mix better with the cream now. And this is the reason people don't make this stuff very often, is because you have to stand here the whole time and stir it. If you don't stir it, so you can see now that cream is really emulsifying into that honey. If you don't stir it, I mean, you can take a break. You know, you can, if you need to grab something, or at the end I'll be getting the pans. But you need to keep it going. It'll burn to the bottom of the pan, and then it imparts a burnt flavor to your candy. Of course, a good reason to pause is to get another swig of coffee and Bailey's. I don't like this thermometer. I can't read it easily from this angle. I need to continue to take it off to really see what it's telling me. I can just smell that honey now. So delicious. I like to be systematic with my stirring. Maybe I overthink it, but it's not just enough to make it go round and round or something, you know. You need to cover the whole bottom of that pan with your spoon so that the honey and cream mixture that's sitting right on the bottom gets exchanged. It doesn't sit there too long, because you are imparting more heat at that point than you really need in the mixture. It's starting to boil. And see how it's filling the pan now? You have to be very careful, because it'll come right over. I find if I blow the top of it a little bit, it cools the top and makes it go down. If it gets out of hand, you just lift it off the heat. Cut out here. After it boils off some of that moisture, it'll settle down a little more. It won't foam as much. But you need to boil it. Boil that moisture off. It's not unlike heating beeswax. If you've ever rendered beeswax on the stove, That'll foam up and go over if you're not careful. And you can imagine if this went over, what a sticky, stinky mess it would be. Not only that, but a waste of nice honey and good cream. You don't need to boil it hard. Ideally, you can boil it just hard enough that it stays in the pot. So I just turned it down a little. You see what I mean? I had about an inch or so of fluid here, and it's filled that pot completely. I just have to nurse it until it's boiled off enough moisture that it's going to settle down by itself. It has to boil to get rid of the moisture, but it foams up when it boils. So it's a trick. And once I get it settled down, I'm going to check that thermometer. It'll come right up to close to where you need it, and it'll sit there for the longest time. It's a little bit annoying that way. What are we looking at? We're looking at 225. You could use an even bigger pot to mitigate this problem. I don't think it would foam indefinitely. It's almost in check here. The smell. Oh, I wish you could smell it. It's so rich and delicious. So I've got the heat right on medium right now. Okay, I've reached an equilibrium between temperature and size of my pot, I think. So it sits around 250 for quite some time, a long time. While you do this, you'll see it sort of settle down a bit and then come up to 275. I'm going to try to get it at least 275. I tend to not get it high enough, and then the caramels are not very firm. And that's just sticky. They're yummy. And we're getting very close here. I can tell it's starting to thicken up. The bubbles, when they come up, the bubble collapses more quickly. Sometimes it splatters a little bit. But I want to go a little farther yet. The last few degrees is always very time consuming. Okay, I think we're there. Now next is remove that from the heat. I'm just going to stir it until it stops bubbling. Okay, tablespoon and a half vanilla. That'll boil right away. And then the other half pound of this butter that I've opened up now. I need to stir that in until the butter is melted. I've turned that heat off. That burner is still a little bit warm though, until that butter is melted. Oh, that looks so good. It smells even better. That's the caramel that you're looking for. Nice and thick, and I can feel how thick that is. It's really nice. It's pudding thick. A little longer for the butter to melt. You can see that now. All right, I'm going to try to pour this. I'll pour some in here. And the pecans tend to sort of float in it. I want to do it carefully so I don't wash the pecans around. I want the pecans to be distributed, you know, sort of evenly. I'm going to get my rubber scraper. I need to do this the other way. Did you get to lick the spoon when you were a kid? Well, I'm about to. Yeah, I know. Boy, oh boy, enough of that. Okay, these need to cool. They need to go in the fridge to cool. And once they're cooled, then I can melt the chippets and pour the chippets over them. Doesn't take long for the chocolate to cool once it's over the caramels and pecans. The caramels have set up now, and I wasn't able to find room in the refrigerator. As I'm sure many of you experience this time of year, there's sometimes quite a bit of food that's been purchased and being kept for the Christmas season, so we're no different than that. But it's -3 outside, and -2 by the one in the kitchen here, and a very calm day. So I just set a towel out on the table that's on the deck and put the caramels there to cool, and I think they're set up quite well. And I'll give you a look at them now. Now I don't think they're frozen, but I'm hoping that means they're actually set up. They're not especially cold, so I think they are set. Now, I'm going to melt the chippets and pour it over. And in the chippets, I'm just going to put a little bit of lard. That's what the recipe kind of calls for. I'm not sure exactly what that does. I think maybe it makes the chocolate a little creamier, perhaps. And I believe you could use shortening as well. This is lard. So I'll start again with medium heat. And I'm just going to dump these in. This is 775 grams. So 454 grams to a pound. So there's just under 2 pounds, I suppose, here. Thousand grams would be 2.2 pounds. And I don't think there's any magical number here. It's just, you know, melt it and pour it on. If it's a little thicker, that's okay. And the recipe that I have calls for 2 tablespoons of lard. And as I do a lot of times, I'll just eyeball that. I don't think a little more or a little less lard is going to make or break this product. So I'll put about that much lard. And again, I think the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons. The recipe says 6 cups of chippets and 2 tablespoons of lard. I'm not sure I have 6 cups here, maybe I do. But again, it's just melted. They're melting already. Not everybody likes dark chocolate, but I do, and I'm the one cooking, so that's what we get. Partly I like dark chocolate because it seems to be less sweet for me, and my aversion to sweet food kind of makes me move toward dark chocolate. Not a bother for candy that I can't even eat. My friends love it, and they've almost become come to expect it at Christmas. I've been doing this for a few years. I like it. I like to see the look on their face when I give them some candies. Now I put the chocolate on here with the pecans, the caramels. It kind of makes it sort of a turtle. You buy the turtles in the boxes. It sort of makes it like that. It's a nice snack, a nice treat. Looking at the amount of chocolate I have here, I might want more chocolate than this. And like I said before, I make this once a year, and I often forget some details. That's okay. Okay, I'm going to pour this on here now. I'll start by pouring it on the big one because I think I have enough chocolate for the big one. That's about right. I might have enough for the small one. I'll have to scrape it out though. Oh yeah, that's gonna work. I'm going to set these back outside to set again. That chocolate won't take long to set. And then I'll try to cut them up into squares. Okay, we're back from the giant refrigerator, which is the outdoors. It's kind of cold, but I don't think it's any colder than normal refrigeration would be. It's always a bit tough to get these started, I find. A heavy, sharp knife. And this is the moment of truth when you find out if the caramel is actually set properly. I'll be honest, it feels a bit soft. It's sliding. It's always hard to get the first one out. Feels a bit soft. Well, not too bad. It's gooey. It's not hard. but it's turtle-like. Like I say, the first one difficult, kind of ruined it, but now we're gonna start. So let's try this. That's pretty good. If I can get them out without tearing them all apart like that, would be nice. Okay, so that's more like it. There's no magic solution to getting them out of these pans. It's hard work, but a combination of starting with this heavy sharp knife to cut the nuts. You have to cut down through the nuts. Use my butter knife to get the first few out. Then I can use this heavy egg flipper to pull up a few at a time. I think I could have boiled these a little longer again, because they are a bit gooey, but they're just fine. It's not going to cause a problem. So what I often do with these is I'll just take a piece and put it in a parchment cupcake wrapper and set them in a box. I didn't have any of those this time, so I've just taken just a seasonal cookie tin sort of a thing, lined it with parchment, put a layer, another layer. I'll get 3 layers in here, and then I'll give that to my friends. Whatever my wife doesn't eat, she thinks they're yummy too. Thanks for hanging around for the caramel bake-off video, and that's about it for the caramels. I'm glad they turned out well. Sometimes they don't, and I'm a bit disappointed, but you keep trying, right? So it's nearly Christmas, and I want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas, all the best in 2024. And these are very trying times for many of us, and difficult times, hard economic times for a lot of people. So take care of each other and take care of yourselves. And like I always say, have fun.